There are days I walk out of the lab with my head down and I'm praying from the lab to my dorm. I'm like, God, I will overcome. So it's just a matter of you knowing what you want. Female students have come, international students, male international students have come. They were victimized and they left. I came, I saw, and I conquered.
And welcome to another session of Academic Research Logs. We're so excited to be here today, and even more so, we have a very special person, a very special guest here with us to really discuss some of the important points that we've been talking about and touching on in regards to research. And I'm going to let our very special guest that honored our invitation here today just to introduce himself to us, please. Sir, if you can just introduce yourself to us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kennie.
By the way, Dr. Kennie.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll have to talk about my area of research interest, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
I'm into soils. I'm an agricultural scientist, but my area of interest is soil science. And I worked as a soil fertility expert. I also work into, my research also goes into remediation of contaminated soils, primarily those two aspects, but then underneath them, there are many different things I also do, but everything all encompassing is under soils.
Wow, that's very amazing. So your area is mainly on agriculture and all of the components that comes with
we can say maybe I should put it like agriculture and environment.
Okay.
So the agricultural part has to do with improving soil fertility, soil nutrient status, soil water content. The environmental part of it now is talking about cleaning up the soil rehabilitation, soil remediation, things like that.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us today as well. I think it's really good to see all the diverse areas, isn't it, that research can touch into. It's like anywhere and anything. But more than that, again, I think we also want to explore your experiences.
Okay.
So how did your research journey start? So how was it for you? What was the inspiration behind your research journey, and how did it begin for you? What's the story behind your research?
How do I start? Starting as an undergraduate or master's, which one is okay?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anything that got you to your PhD journey.
Okay.
How did it? What's your pathway into it?
Let me start from my master's then. So undergraduate is quite general, everyone has that. But then most of these issues about going for PhD, usually starts at the master's level, because now you're exposed to research, you understand about publications, you want to go more deep, you want to go deeper into whatever it is you did during your master's. Many people did undergraduate and are just like, okay, I just did it for, just for the certificate. But the moment you get into the master's level, you're starting to define yourself in that field. So when I did my master's at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, and I did soil microbiology then, MSc soil microbiology. But towards the end of the program, one of the guys who was in the class ahead of me, he got a scholarship in India. And then we were like, wow, it's possible to get a scholarship. Yeah, let's also go into this thing, I was like, I can still remember myself and a friend of mine, we were sitting at the lobby, the department lobby then, and we were just thinking about this thing about scholarships, and we started to research what it's all about. We realized there were some things we needed to do, and we started. He eventually got a scholarship also in the UK for his PhD. I also got scholarship elsewhere for my PhD, and that was how our journey started. So for me, the first thing I did, and as I'll be telling you about my story, I'll be stopping at some points and show examples or keys or things that you could benefit, you could take, also for yourself. Now, when I was going to start for my own journey, I started by first searching. The first thing I did was the search was not very thorough then because yes, I had no guidance, I had nobody to help me, but it was just a crude search, I would say. You know, every journal article I read, I would take away all the emails there and just send them an email. The email addresses, send them an email like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I'm looking for a PhD opportunity. You know, I was just sending emails everywhere to anyone, every Dick and Harry got email from me. You know, some responded, oh, we like what you're doing, but we don't have any funding. We like what you're doing, but if you can contact us next year, maybe we can have a place for you. Some will say, okay, maybe I can transfer you to my colleague who may have a place, you know, things like that. Some wouldn't even respond, you know. But I never gave up. I think I sent over 200 emails.
Wow.
You know?
Wow, what tenacity.
I was just sending emails. Every email address just sent something, you know, and I think that was a foundation. You know, after having done this, there was a time I got an email from a professor from China, and that was what changed the story. You know, she was like, hey, I like what you're doing, and you're welcome to join my lab. But she doesn't have funding.
Okay.
Now I had to look for funding for myself. How she told me in the email about the Chinese government funding, so I started again. You know, what is this Chinese government funding all about? How can I get it? You know, the other guy, our senior, got the Indian scholarship, was funded by the Indian government.
Okay.
You know, and the reason why we didn't go through that route was because you have to go to the Indian embassy to write an exam. We're like, we've written so many exams. I can't go back to writing exams again, you know.
Too complicated.
No, I don't want to go that route. You know, so this one, I started searching for the Chinese government funding, you know. Then one morning, as I opened my email, I just saw this email from the Chinese government scholarship, government scholarship here. Then I was like, this looks like what I've been looking for. Chinese Government Council, CSC. You know, I was like, wow, this looks like what I've been looking for. Then I opened it and voila, it was what I wanted. Oh my goodness, I was, how did they say it? Head and heel, or...
You know, so excited or overjoyed.
I was head into this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wouldn't even eat in the morning before going out of the home, looking for other things I needed. You know, you needed to bring some things together, medical tests, transcripts, recommendation letters, and those things. You know, I wouldn't even eat in the morning before I got to the hospital. I just wanted to get my medical test all done. You know, and to cut the long story short, today's not the day of testimony.
Well,
I was able to
you need to testify of God's goodness.
I was able to finish the application, send it, then I had rest of mind. So cut the long story short, I got into China and the race began. You know, the challenges there started. Yeah, of course, international studentship is not easy. So the lesson there, the first lesson that I want you to get out of it is resilience. You know, I didn't have any guidance, but I knew what I wanted.
That's really true.
I was sending emails everywhere. Everywhere I could get help, I was sending emails. I didn't care what was behind the scene. I didn't care what was behind the emails. It was later, much later, I realized that sometimes students also have their email addresses on the papers, but I didn't know as at then. You know, so I probably could have sent emails to some students who would have said, hey, who is this bloke? You know, and deleted it. I didn't know, but who cares? I got what I wanted at the long run. So don't give up. Persist, you know what you want, and continue searching, continue doing all of that. So the first, I got into China and I started my PhD. There were challenges there. Is it the language challenges? Is it the challenges of the new techniques I was going to use for my research? Is it the victimization in the lab? You know, all of those. But then resilience again. Never give up. There was a time in the lab, you know, because I speak English and I speak Chinese, and these Chinese guys in the lab were like, if we help this guy, he's going to fly higher. We don't speak English, we will just be at this level. While he picks the Chinese, speaks English, he gets good publications, writes good publications, he goes out of China, he goes everywhere. But we are just going to be at this level. So many of them refused to help. But then this disadvantage, I took it up as an advantage. To build myself. Now the things I should have asked people, now I have to go the extra mile to search them out. So I know when I get something, I know I got it for myself. I know the stress I've gone through to get it. So I can teach people because I got it. It was not given to me, you know. So when I was leaving China, I think I left it about 10 papers, three first
that's
author
awesome.
papers, three first
amazing.
authors, and
Yeah.
I've contributed to other people's lives, so they wrote out my name in their papers, things like that. So don't give up. It's tough, yeah, but then if you put your dreams on it, you're gonna make it, I tell you. So that's one phase. That's the first scholarship I ever got. Then the challenges I got in China now made me like, I don't want to settle for that first PhD only. I know people find it crazy, like, hey, second PhDs. Yeah, so I said no, I was going to go. I wasn't confident to go for postdoc at that time because of all that had beaten me in the lab, But I excelled, but that confidence wasn't there. So in order to build my self-confidence, I had to apply to now a country where English is the medium of communication, where I can understand people when they speak, and I can talk to people, I can express myself very well. Then I applied to Ireland for a scholarship, to UK for a scholarship, to Australia for a scholarship. Now let's stop there. Remember that the first time when I was going to apply for the Chinese scholarship, I was just sending emails. Now this time, I've gotten experience.
Yeah.
I've gotten more skill.
That's right.
I know what I wanted. So rather than doing it the way I did the first time, this time was more refined.
Absolutely.
I went, which university? The first thing was, which university do I want? I went to that university particularly that has my course of interest, soils. I went to the university specifically, the department, then read specifically about the professors. Initially, I didn't know anybody, but now I was very particular about the lab I was going into. So rather than the crude method, this is a more refined and better way. So you know whom you're dealing with. You know what you expect in the lab.
Yes.
You probably will see the list of students in the lab, current students in the lab. You could mail any one of them to help you, tell you more about what they do there. So, but the point there is you know whom you're dealing with. And when you're sending an email, rather than sending a generic email, you're sending emails specifically. Hey, Professor Tommy, this is who I am. You know them by their names. I've read about you. This is what you do. This is what you do. This is what I do. And I think our path crosses at this place. That person knows that, hey, you've studied me. So they don't just read your email and they're like, just trash this. They know you've taken the time to study them. You've taken the time to study their works. So you will be a good student in my lab if you get into my lab, because you gave attention to details, not just sending email, hey, I want a PhD, can you help me? Anybody can send that, So that is one other lesson. So sending that kind of email, it was quick for me to get people's attention. I got a professor in Ireland, I got a professor in the UK, in Australia I got quite a number of them, But in Australia the problem I had was I had to write English test, which I didn't want to do any exam again. I didn't want to write any test again. No, I'm tired.
I think if anyone knows the way our education system works, everything is tested.
Yeah,
Everything is
test. I was like, must I write test again? But fortunately, University of Adelaide, where I ended up, did not accept English test for me being a Nigerian. That was my luck. I communicated with the professor and she accepted me. In fact, I sent an email in the morning. Before night, the response came. The acceptance came. She proposed a topic. And by the second day, I already knew where I was going. We started to discuss the research things, and I was already thinking like an Australian,
But I think all of that, isn't it? It's amazing the work that's led to that. You were very strategic.
That's right. Strategy is it. That's right.
And rather than the first time when it was every dictionary and you're waiting, this time you knew exactly what you wanted.
That's it.
And it was quite strategic, isn't it?
That's and I think that's the key there. You have to be strategic. Don't just cast your net into the waters. Don't just you have to. These days there are most of these developed countries, the emails, university emails particularly, have filters. So any email that comes into the professor's box usually are screened. So you don't want your own email to be screened out as this is just a spam. So you want to write something that is formal, something that is deliberate. Like, hey, I am a scientist. You may not be a big scientist. You may not be, you're not up there yet, but you know what you want. You know how to start, and you know what you're looking for. Put that into the other person. Let them know that I need help. Not that you're begging them, but you are being professional in the way you address this issue. You understand? So that is what will make them to say, okay, we have this opportunity and there's someone looking for an opportunity. Why don't we consider this person?
That's very good,
So it's about your strategy. Okay, so when these applications that I submitted, the Australian one came first.
Okay.
And a bird in hand is worth more than 10
That's very
I was like, no, this one, I got it.
Yes.
And I started it. Fortunately and unfortunately, the other ones did not, come successful. But I already started up with this one. And long story short, I got into Australia and I started the journey again, another life journey.
Another PhD again.
Yes, another
That's
PhD.
Your second PhD.
Now, you may think, oh, why all the stress? I think it was worth it. Because when I was in China, comparing China and Australia research environment, they are different.
Yes.
In China, you are the boss. Apart from the professor and the team lead, you are the boss. You have master students around you as a PhD student.
Okay.
You have undergraduate students around you. So you are dictating, you are deciding what they will do.
Okay.
So that's it. You have your work split among these little, like trainees, we call them. You have your work distributed among them. So you sit down and they give you whatever you want. But in Australia, you are the boss, you are the trainee, you are everything. Your professor is the only one above you, you are the next, and nobody is beneath you. So that kind of skill, those skills that I got in China really helped me. Then sometimes I could hide under the pretense that I didn't understand the language. Then I get these guys doing something. But now, man, I was up there, out there. If I did anything silly, it was coming back on me. If I did anything good, it was coming back on me.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, being alone helped me to think straight. I could design my experiment myself. I could go to the lab, implement it myself. I got the data myself, analyzed myself, only presented it to my professor, and she will be like, okay, this. Then I wrote the papers myself. So that way, I had my confidence built up. When I was leaving China, I had 3 first author papers, but after my PhD in Australia, I had 6 first author papers. And I got a Dean Award of Excellence, Research Excellence. So you see, it's not because I just started, but the foundation I've had really helped me. So it's back to what she said, strategy. So you see now, it depends on the way you want, what you want, but be strategic in it. Success doesn't come easy, I tell you, but you have to go for it. Be strategic in it. Be resilient. There will be difficulty, Is it okay to quote a Bible verse?
Yes, absolutely.
2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 3 says, thou therefore endure hardness.
That's right, yeah.
Hardness will come as an international student. Let me tell you when I first got to China, what I was going to do was more of microbiology related.
Okay.
And in UI I did soil microbiology, but I never did anything microbiology physical. It was all on the board, Now I had to do plating. And I got to the lab in China and I couldn't hold the petri dish, There's a way you hold it with this finger, these fingers hold a plate, the lower one, then this one opens and closes the lid. So you are in the film hood, and because you don't want the thing in the plate to be contaminated, you have to use this. And my
fingers were shaking.
My fingers were shaking. I'm a master's student, for crying out loud. It was an undergraduate student that taught me how to do this properly.
What does that say about education system in Nigeria?
Don't go there. Don't talk about that. But the most important thing is be ready. It's tough. It's going to be tough. Things that people expected, you're a master student, you should have been able to do this. I'm sorry, you can't tell them, my country. No, nobody cares. So you are the one that will have to be resilient.
Absolutely.
Be thou therefore endure hardness. Endurance is there. When it's hard, the victimizations I got in the lab were hard, but I never gave up. I came out there, and the papers I got in China were the ones that helped me to get the scholarship in Australia.
That's true.
So I got the scholarship in Australia, and I did not just say, hey, I'm now into ease. I still fired on, got myself those 6 papers, you know, and because of the what's it called now, the foundation I've built, the strategies I've had, and those experiences I've had. Before I finished my PhD in Australia, I'd already started research collaborations. I had most especially the guys I met, you know, came from Pakistan, and we met in China. They went back home, and most of them got into the universities, you know, as assistant professors. They wanted projects, they got funding. So I collaborated with them. I developed, now I can develop projects. I developed projects with them, you know, things they were going to do. I was like a supervisor to them. They were doing it. I was writing the project. They would do. They got the papers. We published. You know, that goes to my CV. I collaborated with people in Pakistan, in Sweden, in China, in Africa, in India. Collaborated with people across, because now I have my confidence built. You see, I did not allow the victimizations to water me down, to weigh me down. You understand now? So before I finished my PhD in Australia, the next thing I asked myself was, what next? So I finished in 2019, the PhD in Australia. I finished in 2019. Before 2018 ended, I had already been asking myself that question. So another point is this: don't wait until the time you need it. Start now.
That's very true.
You know, start now. If it's next year you want to go for a PhD, start making your findings now. What do you want to work on? Start reading about it now. Where do you want to go? Start reading about it now. Where would you get the funding? Start thinking about it now. Who do you want to contact? Start about everything now. Get your I would say archive built. You know, then I will have an Excel sheet where I have the professor's name, the professor's contact, the link to the professor's details. Then I have another sheet for funding, type of funding, the opening date of the funding, the closing date of the funding, you know, things like that. So whenever I wake up and I see, I know what I'm looking at. I know what I'm looking for. I don't have to start searching Google again. I have everything mapped out. So when the time comes, I know what I'm applying for. I know when this one is opening. I know when this one is closing. I know what, you know, strategy again. Okay. So that is it. As of 2018, I started writing the proposal for my postdoc, even though I had not finished the PhD. So as at the application I was going to put in for closed May, and I was still a PhD student. So I submitted it still, you know, with the anticipation that I was going to finish my PhD later in the year. I finished PhD November 2019. Now, October 2019. The postdoc came through November 2019, the next month. So if I had delayed, maybe I would have waited a year.
Another year,
you know.
potentially, yes.
So January 2020, I started with the university again.
That's good.
You know. So that is about strategy, knowing what you want and how to go for it. So I started that and I finished that last April. Late last year, I started another application which was submitted early this year, you know, to the ARC, Australia Research Council. The results will be out later this year. So it's just about knowing what you want and going for it. Nobody will be your guide. Nobody will be your guide. So you may be lucky to have people who will guide you. For example, this medium we are using now could be a means of guidance.
That's another,
you know, but you wouldn't have anyone to really hold you by the hand and take you every step of the way. Okay, you have to be your own guide.
Yes.
You know what you want, you go for it. Now, in the postdoc that I did, I collaborated with a Swedish professor. I was the one who contacted him. I've built this profile for myself. So it's easy for me to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. That's the same approach I started with. This is what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. I think I can get some things from you. Let's work together on this. And
That's really good.
You know, because I have a profile now that I can use as my backup, but it's still that same strategy that I've been using from the beginning. You see, contacting people. Never hesitate in contacting people. Now, in contacting people, this is one thing you should learn. Be formal, be respectful. There was a friend who sent an email to some professors some time ago, you know, and I happened to see his email. I felt ashamed. Why? Dear professor, this, everything in lowercase. It's no name in lowercase. The professor, full stop, no space after full stop, no comma somewhere. Everything was just like a kindergarten writing an essay. No, don't do that. Learn how to write. The people you are writing to, they want respect. You need to earn their respect also. So write in a very formal way. You don't have to beg, but where you need to capitalize. Where you need your space, there's this application called Grammarly. Grammarly can help you edit your emails. Use something that will help you. It's not a shame to use such applications. They help you refine your email writing. Then the people who see there the other side, they see your email and yes, they can read it. Not something like if you send an email to me with a sir stroke ma or ma stroke sir, dear sir, dear ma, I'm going to trash it. That's not my name. But if you write like dear, maybe even if you just say dear Kennie, I know you are addressing me, you're calling my attention. You can't just say, hey, yes. That's not me.
To whom it may concern.
No. Call me Kennie. Yes, I'll look at you. But when you just say dear Sama, that's a generic email. It doesn't command respect.
It's groundwork. Do the groundwork.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The first time I started, I was just like that. But by the second time, I did my groundwork. I knew what I was doing. So let it be like that. Strategy. And you will see success will always fall. Back to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 6 now talks about something important. It says the husbandman that labors must be first partaker of the fruit. Remember a few verses away, he said, suffer hardness. You have to suffer hardness to plant, to do that.
Yeah.
Now you're coming to reap.
Now
you're reaping. But you that sowed, the husbandman, must be the first partaker. So the fruit you have sown, you will be the first to enjoy.
Absolutely.
I'm enjoying the fruit I've labored now. I'm enjoying the hardness as the husbandman that labored. So you also can do the same thing by enduring hardness, by being strategic, being resilient.
Yes.
The nature of the country you are in, the kind of educational system is not an excuse for your failure. So get up, pick yourself up, think. If you need to start writing now. What should I do? How should I approach it? And by the grace of God, lines will start falling in places for you.
That's really good.
That's it. That's my journey so far.
Thank you so much. I think
You're welcome.
That's really some really key examples of practical lessons before we start to sort of put ourselves out there, being strategic, like you said, and knowing what's happening and where we're going, rather than just sort of doing everything and anything around. So thank you very much, Dr. Kennie, for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
I think that's basically the first part, just really telling us about your own pathway to research. And I think we're going to stop here for the first part. You've shared the lessons, you've shared some of the peculiarities, but I think one thing that I also maybe wanted to check with you is, as a man, do you have any peculiar experience for you as a man in research, in academia, in this journey from China now to Australia? Do you have anything that's specific for you as
being
a man?
Yeah. I don't think there is anything really particular in being a man, Dreams are not selective, they're not, how will I put it, they are not gender selective. Success is not gender selective. It's, you have your dreams, it's yours. Whether you are a male or a female, you can decide to be the best female in your field. It's you, that's your dream, that's your goal, that's what you want to achieve, So the challenges I faced back in China could have, anybody could have faced that. As a matter of fact, I wasn't the first international student in that lab. The other international students that came were victimized. The way I was victimized, they never finished. They left. You see, I was the first black, the first African in that lab, and maybe because of our African resilience, I was like, damn it, whatever you bring, I'm going to accept it. There are days I walk out of the lab with my head down and I'm praying from the lab to my dorm. I'm like, God, I will overcome. So it's just a matter of you knowing what you want. You know, female students have come, international students, male international students have come. They were victimized and they left. I came, I saw, and I conquered. You see, after me, there was another lady who came into that lab, who also happened to be a Nigerian. You know, I told her everything I faced there, and I told her, come girl, it ain't gonna be easy, but be ready. And she finished, I think she finished about 2 years ago. So she finished there also in that same lab. She never gave up because I told her, I had nobody to tell me, hey, this is this and things there. But when I went through, I was even the first Nigerian in that university.
Wow,
you know, so by the second year, I had introduced about 3. By the time I was graduating, I know there were about 10 people I brought in. You know, because I needed my small community that will encourage me, will encourage one another. You know, so all of these guys have all graduated PhDs and have gone back. They all did excellently well. You know, because I was there as a forerunner, I suffered everything, and I had to tell them, come, it ain't gonna be easy. And I'm telling you too, it ain't gonna be easy. But you know what you want. Don't let anybody beat you down on it. That's it.
And I think it's amazing how your resilience is paving ways, because now they would think if Dr. Kennie can do it, so can I.
That's right. So can you.
So and even though yes, these things are not it shouldn't be happening, but there's nothing we can do about that. It will still keep happening.
Yeah.
But I think your journey is definitely an inspiration and encourage other people as well to just keep going regardless of what might happen or what they might be faced with.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
We really appreciate you coming and sharing with us your journey, your experiences of being in research, and we hope we're going to see you again very soon.
Hopefully.
Next time.
There are lots to talk about actually. There are lots to talk about in research particularly. There are lots to talk about. So I hope, you know, sometime in the nearest future we'll get to catch up again.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a second part for this video as well. So probably, because we're going to stop it on here, but we're going to have another part maybe on scholarship on another time. And maybe we'll just get you to give us some tips, especially for a lot of people coming from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, trying to get into Australia for the PhDs or higher research, higher degree researches. So I think it would be good if we you'd be able to share that with us as well.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem.
On another part.
That's not a
but
problem.
I really appreciate your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.